The waystones at the borders of Athelorn may serve as a warning to those foolish enough to enter, and a way to imprison the malevolent spirits that call the Wildwood home, but today on Warhammer 2, they won't stop two races who have an illustrious history of messing with the Azrai from doing battle on their front doorstep. It's the Dark Elves and the Dwarfs at the Battle of the Cairns, and as you might expect, going heavy metal with the Executioners of Harganeth, who are amongst the best choices in the game for leaving Dawi of their heads, beards, and all. And the Blades of the Blood Queen are the cream of the crop when it comes to a quick decapitating strike. Malekith and his pet raptors will be looking to feast, and with the mass and mobility that Chariot affords, the Cold Ones should eat well today, with Soul Stealer looking to snipe out Lords and Heroes. But on the other side of the field, Rangers lead the way with Vanguard and Skirmish power for days at a very cheap price of 500 gold. They provide a lot of utility for a roster that can really benefit from asymmetrical gameplay, and that's what we're going to be seeing here. Eumaeus commands the Dwarfs, while Rigzin commands the Dark Elves, both talented players in their own right, so this should be a good one. And take a look at that Dawi deployment, spreading the field really wide, while Rigzin is lining up for a hardcore melee rush. Now, I love this kind of gameplay for the Dwarfs, because it turns one of their biggest weaknesses, a lack of mobility, into a strength. By vanguarding an entire section of your army, you start out already positioned on their flank, you create overlapping fields of fire, and it can make it very hard to know how much to commit to an engagement if you're an opponent, because when you commit, it opens up a ton of angles for their artillery and gunpowder to fire down the length of your units or into your unshielded rear. It is a lot tougher to take down this type of composition than a traditional one-dimensional kind of phalanx style box, because in that situation, you know how much to commit to the fight. In this kind of situation, it's a lot harder to know that. You might notice his Runesmith and his Rune Lord are completely stripped down to the bare essentials, only have Runes of Wrath and Ruin, making them as cheap as possible, and give them an option for deleting Sisters of Slaughter and those Executioners. Now, early on, Rune of Wrath and Ruin going down, that will bypass the physical resistance, so a good way to kind of delete them from the game really early on. Sisters of Slaughter, you might think that's not the best choice against Dwarfs. They actually are. They're amazing. High melee defense, high mobility. They can just hunt down a lot of stuff in the Dwarf back line, and they have good AP and just good melee stats in general. Malekith only has Soul Stealer, going to be very good for sniping out the Lords and Heroes here, or kind of just deleting big blobs of infantry if the Dawi decide to get really boxed up. But it doesn't look like they're going to be going that way. And you can see some Dark Riders Vanguard deployed in the back lines. So, early on, very heavy melee rush from Rigzin. You know he's going to go straight into combat here and try to overwhelm this Dawi defense, while the Rangers on the left flank of the Dark Elves try to put a lot of pressure. And the Thunderers are going to get some devastating volleys into the front ranks of those Sisters of Slaughter, who are really not having a great time to start this battle. They have a great missile block chance. I believe it's 30%. And they have that physical resist, but they've been slowed down by that Rune of Wrath and Ruin and already down to half HP. Trying to get around the flank here, but that's just going to create more opportunities for those Thunders to get some withering salvos into their flank, and they are just getting destroyed. Runesmith going to tie them all down. Black Ark Corsairs already down to half HP as well, and a nice musket ball is just going to take the head of another Sister of Slaughter. Now, this is called refusing a flank, an oblique order. It's been used on battlefields throughout history, and it can work incredibly well in Total War as well. His left flank is weak, so he's going to roll that back and avoid the melee rush of the Dark Elves there, pulling them deeper into enfilade fire from the Rangers and Thunders, while his Vanguard wing pushes onto the Dark Elves left and creates some juicy opportunities there. The Dark Elves Vanguard is going to temporarily throw a wrench into that plan, but that is a misclick. The Dark Elves, the Dark Riders, are really just going to get taken to Pound Town by the Dragonback Slayers here, and with the Rangers in support, I don't think these light cavalry are going to be long for this world, and they will get slaughtered and run from the battlefield. So that was not the best Vanguard ambush I've ever seen, but misclicks happen. They have gotten into the other Rangers and actually taken them down to half HP. Didn't really expect Dark Riders to be able to do that much damage that quickly, but marked by Ulthar going down in the center on those Executioners, and already you can see how that Oblique Order has kind of forced the Dark Elves into a weird position where suddenly they're getting enfilade fire from all different angles, getting shot up by the throwing axes, by the Rangers, by the Thunderers, and this gunpowder. And this range build from the Dawi is really putting a lot of pressure on the Dark Elves to move and get into melee as soon as possible. And that is where Malekith is going to come in with that Cold One Chariot. He can do some brutal work against the Dwarfs. He needs to get under control. There he goes right now, taking a couple shots from those Rangers in the back. Sisters of Slaughter getting destroyed by those blasting charges. And here Malekith is going to spring his attack straight into the Rangers, laying about with his sword destroyer, decapitating dwarfs as he rides by. That is so gangster. Just see Malekith rolling through the hood in his 6'4 cruiser, just murdering stuff as he goes by. And yeah, those Rangers are going to get run over. But to be honest here, the Malekith doesn't really want to spend too much time killing Rangers. They're only 500 gold. He would much rather be killing the important infantry or the throwing axe Rangers that are right in front of him. So he might look to go for them. Thunder is also a very big threat right now. That gunpowder, the AP against those executioners is going to be a very big threat. And the Blades of the Blood Queen and the executioners in the center have made it in, and this is where things are going to start shifting back towards the Dark Elves. This is where they really want to be. They are taking a lot of skirmish fire and still getting whittled down by both the Rune Lord and the Rune Smith, but the Rune Smith is already routed. He's almost dead. Rune Lord is very low. Both of them took a lot of damage in that initial engagement and probably should not have been that close to the melee engagement because they really were not going to trade well into executioners at all. And this is where the Blades of the Blood Queen can really turn a fight in their favor. Even at half HP, they could kill hundreds of these Dawi by themselves. The best melee troops the dwarfs have on the field right now are Longbeards without great weapons, so they are not going to trade well into executioners at all. Blackguard Corsairs also going to be a big threat to the dwarf warriors and a lot of these regular mainline infantry for the Dawi. And Malekith is still free, and now he's about to get into the cookie jar. Soul Stealer going down. It's going to hit both the Rune Lord and the Rune Smith, and he's charging into melee with those cold ones, and the Raptors will feast here on the Rangers, and he'll just pull through, use that AP and bonus for infantry to its fullest potential, and the Runesmith will actually go down to the Soul Stealer. Malekith getting a lot of his health back in that too. Cast was really nice, managed to hit both the Rune Lord and the Runesmith. Bolt Thrower has been compromised by some miners with blasting charges, and those Sisters of Slaughter on their last legs, just getting shish kebabbed by all this range fire that's crisscrossing and arcing into their backs. Looks like the Rune Lord very close to death here. Malekith does have that AP and bonus versus infantry, and so the Rune Lord, who's not mounted on his Anvil of Doom, will take additional damage to him, and he will run from the battlefield. I'm not sure we'll see him return. Malekith just getting into melee before those Thunders had a chance to fire. It could have been really bad for him if he'd taken a point-blank volley to the face, and he will continue through and keep causing havoc. And that is one thing the Cold One Chariot is absolutely amazing for when facing off against the Dawi. The Blades of the Blood Queen did win their engagement against the Longbeards, but taking yet another marked by Althar, and that will lower their missile resist and their armor, and give those Longbeards a little bit more opportunity to trade into them. Malekith down to about 2/3 HP, so he's still fine right now, and he only brought Soul Stealer and Power from Darkness, so he'll be able to cast that for days and get a lot of his health back, and killing that final cannon as well. So the Dawi losing a lot of their range firepower here. Dragonback Slayers chasing after him. That is a great way to limit the mobility of that chariot, slow him down, and they can do some serious damage to him as well. But Destroyer will arc its way through their formations and just carve a path of bloody ruin. Blades of the Blood Queen not really sure where they want to go. And this is the brilliant thing about this kind of build from the Dwarfs. When you spread the field this much, when you put pressure on the Dark Elves from so many different angles, their infantry, once they've lost their cav, is really not going to be able to catch up very easily to the Dwarf Rangers, who are kind of going to have free reign here. But the Cold One Chariot is still that ace in the hole for the Druchii here. Malekith is still a monster, and he's got the mobility to run down Rangers all day. Dragonback Slayers can kind of catch up to him once he commits to a fight, but once he gets free, he can go after those Rangers on the other side of the battlefield, and Dragonback Slayers are never going to be able to catch him. Rigson really needs to get some of these melee troops into combat. The problem is, they are so low at this point, and their leadership is plummeting. So many of them just routing off the field right now, but the Blades of the Blood Queen have made it in to Ulthar's Rangers, and that is not a fight they want to be in. Even how depleted these executioners are, they're gonna rip stuff up, and Dragonback Slayer's not very happy about it, coming over to ink some grudges in the blood of the Druchii, and those Blades of the Blood Queen just touching those Ulthar's Rangers, giving them the bad touch right now. The Rangers getting some shots in from the flank, and those Blades of the Blood Queen might rout, but Malekith has taken some volleys from those Thunders. HP is very low, but Soul Stealer going down, and he will get some of it back. Soul Stealer is just an amazing ability, and look at that, his health already going back up now. And the balance bar nowhere near as bad as you might think it is, simply because of how strong Malekith is on that Cold One Chariot, especially against the Dwarfs. they do not have a lot of options for taking him down right now. Once those Thunderers are gone, it's pretty much the Dragonback Slayers and range fire, but those Rangers are really not so great for killing a single entity that's as fast as Malekith on that chariot. And he's going to go after the cannon crew again. He's going to go after the Rangers again and just make sure that they run from the field here. And he could get hundreds of kills this way. That side chariot is really just designed for killing dwarfs, but there is no infantry left. It's basically just this tiny sliver of HP left on the Blades of the Blood Queen, and the Dragonback Slayers getting in behind them, decapitating them with some nice strikes and some Ajuni chops, Aninji chops, Karate chops, and that will spell doom for the Dark Elves. So, really well played from Eumaeus. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Apologies if I am. I did ask him on Discord, but I didn't get a response, so I don't actually know how to pronounce it. But he played incredibly well that game. He is well known throughout the community as being a very good Dwarfs player. Rigson is quite a good player himself, so very well matched players here. And honestly, this was just composition-based, amazing deployment from the Dwarfs to put a ton of pressure on the Dark Elves' left flank, overwhelm them with Rangers, who led the way quite impressively in this battle. Again, they're not going to rack up an amazing amount of kills because so much of it is heavily armored for the Dark Elves, but they did a lot of damage, and they put a lot of pressure in an area where the Dark Elves were not really designed to run them down. I'm not sure they had quite enough mobility in this battle. The Dark Riders, the Vanguard ambush from them just kind of got stuffed immediately. Dragonback Slayers put them in the dirt for good. But spreading the field, refusing that flank, using that oblique order to get them out of position and enfilade fire them down, it worked wonders in this battle, and it is something that you should probably try to emulate if you're playing the Dwarfs. Don't just go for those Phalanx style boxes. Spread the field, use range firepower, do Dawi stuff. It's a good time. Peace out.